Exodus chapter 13. The Lord spoke to Moses and said, "Consecrate to me every firstborn that opens the womb among the Israelites, both of man and beasts, for it belongs to me." Moses said to the people, "Remember this day on which you came out of Egypt, that place of slavery. It was with a strong hand that the Lord brought you away. Nothing made with leaven must be eaten. This day of your departure is in the month of Abib. Therefore, it is in this month that you must celebrate this rite after the Lord your God has brought you into the land of Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers he will give you, a land flowing with milk and honey. For 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and the seventh day shall also be a festival to the Lord. Only unleavened bread may be eaten during the 7 days. No leaven and nothing leavened may be found in all your territory. On this day you shall explain to your son, 'This is because of what the Lord did for me when I came out of Egypt.' It shall be as a sign on your hand and as a reminder on your forehead. Thus the law of the Lord will ever be on your lips, because with a strong hand the Lord brought you out of Egypt. Therefore you shall keep this prescribed rite at its appointed time from year to year. When the Lord your God has brought you into the land of Canaanites, which he swore to you and your fathers he will give you, you shall dedicate to the Lord every son that opens the womb, and all the male firstlings of your animals shall belong to the Lord. Every firstborn of an ass you shall redeem with a sheep. If you do not redeem it, you shall break its neck. Every firstborn son you must redeem. If your son should ask you later on, 'What does this mean?' you shall tell him, 'With a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, that place of slavery. When Pharaoh stubbornly refused to let you go, the Lord killed every firstborn in the land of Egypt, every firstborn of man and of beast. This is why I sacrifice to the Lord everything of the male sex that opens the womb, and why I redeem every firstborn of my sons. Let this then be as a sign on your hand and as a pendant on your forehead. With a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt." Now when Pharaoh let the people go, God did not lead them by way of the Philistines' land, though this was the nearest, for he thought, should the people see that they would have to fight, they might change their minds and return to Egypt. Instead, he rerouted them toward the Red Sea by way of the desert road. In the battle array, the Israelites marched out of Egypt. Moses also took Joseph's bones along, for Joseph had made the Israelites swear solemnly that when God should come to them, they will carry his bones away with them. Setting out from Succoth, they camped at Etham, near the edge of the desert. The Lord preceded them in the daytime by means of a column of cloud to show them the way, and at night by means of a column of fire to give them light. Thus they could travel both day and night. Neither the column of cloud by day nor the column of fire by night ever left its place in front of the people. Chapter 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Tell the Israelites to turn about and camp before Pihahiroth, between Migdol and the sea. You shall camp in front of Baal-zephon, just opposite by the sea. Pharaoh will then say, The Israelites are wandering about aimlessly in the land. The desert has closed in on them. Thus I will make Pharaoh so obstinate that he will pursue them. Then I will receive glory through Pharaoh and all his army, and the Egyptians will know that I am the Lord." This the Israelites did. When it was reported to the king of Egypt that the people had fled, Pharaoh and his servants changed their minds about them. "What have we done?" they exclaimed. "Why we have released Israel from our service?" So Pharaoh made his chariots ready and mustered his soldiers, 600 first-class chariots and all the other chariots of Egypt, with warriors on them all. So obstinate had the Lord made Pharaoh that he pursued the Israelites even while they were marching away in triumph. The Egyptians then pursued them. Pharaoh's whole army, his horses, chariots, and charioteers caught up with them as they lay encamped by the sea at Pi-Hahiroth in front of Baal-zephon. Pharaoh was already near when the Israelites looked up and saw that the Egyptians were on the march in pursuit of them. In great fright, they cried out to the Lord, and they complained to Moses, "Were there no burial places in Egypt that you had to bring us out here to die in this desert? Why did you do this to us? Why did you bring us out of Egypt? Did we not tell you this in Egypt when we said, 'Leave us alone. Let us serve the Egyptians'? Far better for us to be the slaves of Egyptians than to die in the desert." But Moses answered the people, "Fear not, stand your ground, and you will see the victory the Lord will win for you today. These Egyptians whom you see today, you will never see again. The Lord himself will fight for you. You have only to keep still." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Why are you crying out to me? Tell the Israelites to go forward, and you lift up your staff, and with hand outstretched over the sea, split the sea in two, that the Israelites may pass through it on dry land. But I will make the Egyptians so obstinate that they will go in after them. Then I will receive glory through Pharaoh and all his army, his chariots and charioteers. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord when I receive glory through Pharaoh and his chariots and charioteers." The angel of God who had been leading Israel's camp now moved and went around behind them. The column of cloud, also leaving the front, took up its place behind them, so that it came between the camp of the Egyptians and of the Israel. But the cloud now became dark, and thus the night passed without the rivals' camp coming any closer together all night long. Then Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord swept the sea with a strong east wind throughout the night, and so turned it into dry land. When the water was thus divided, the Israelites marched into the midst of the sea on dry land, with the water like a wall to their right and to their left. The Egyptians followed in pursuit. All Pharaoh's horses and chariots and charioteers went after them right into the midst of the sea. In the night watch, just before dawn, the Lord cast through the column of the fiery cloud upon the Egyptians' force a glance that drew it into a panic. And he so clogged their chariot wheels that they could hardly drive. With that, the Egyptians sounded the retreat between Israel, because the Lord was fighting for them against the Egyptians. Then the Lord told Moses, "Stretch out your hand over the sea, that the water may flow back again the Egyptians upon their chariots and their charioteers." So Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and at dawn the sea flowed back to its normal depth. The Egyptians were fleeing head on toward the sea when the Lord hurled them into its midst. As the water flowed back, it covered the chariots and the charioteers of Pharaoh's whole army, which had flowed the Israelites into the sea. Not a single one of them escaped, but the Israelites had marched on dry land through the midst of the sea, with the water like a wall to their right and to their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel on that day from the power of the Egyptians. When Israel saw the Egyptians lying dead on the seashore, and behold, the great power that the Lord had shown against the Egyptians, they feared the Lord and believed in him and in his servant Moses. The word of the Lord.